So we're going to talk about conduction, induction, and polarization. These are ways in which we can charge an object. When charge is put onto an object, so in this picture here, we have a rod, and the rod has on it some electrons. Don't worry about the exact number, just know it has some electrons. And when it is somehow, which we're going to talk about the ways how in a minute, but somehow it is put charge onto this ball. This ball started off to be neutral. We have put some charge on that ball. Those electrical charges are going to distribute themselves evenly over the ball. And we'll talk about exactly why that happens in our next video. So there are three ways to charge an object that we're going to talk about. And the first one is called conduction. Charging by conduction goes like this. We have a ball, and this ball was originally neutral. This ball right here is originally neutral. When we are looking at this, we have brought in this rubber rod. Rubber is an insulator, so the person's able to touch the rod without having the rod lose its electrons. So we have this negatively charged rod, and we bring it in near the ball. Notice that it isn't touching the ball. At that point, if this material, which this looks like it's a metal ball, which would be a conductor itself, if this material is a conductor, then what happens is some of the electrons in the ball repel away from the rubber rod and they move over to this side. And so if you count up the number of electrons on the right and the number of electrons on the left, what you will find is, or protons on the left, electrons on the left, protons on the number of electrons on the right, protons on the left, you will find that the number here is exactly the same, because at one point they were paired together in neutral atoms. So now we brought in the rubber rod and the electrons have moved away. When I bring the rod in and I touch it, some of the electrons have moved off, and now they have paired up with the positive charges to create neutral atoms. So we started off with negative, moving to the right, and then those negatives stay there, and then negatives from the rod come over and create neutral. So now you could see here, we have an excess of electrons. These electrons over here don't have anybody to pair up with. And so now we take the rod and we move it back away. And when we do that, what we find out is that the rod still has a few negative charges on it, but the electrons that were originally on the rod are now trapped on the ball. And so the electrons that were in the ball initially off to the right-hand side that don't have a place to go, when they come back over, and when the rod is removed, when they come back over to their original positions, there's nowhere for them to go. So they equally distribute around, and now we have an excess of negative charge on the ball. And so we would say that the ball is charged, and it was charged by direct contact, so it's called conduction. The second method is called charging by induction. Very similar name, keep it straight. So what happens here is we have our neutral ball again. We bring in our rod, same way we did the last time. Negative charges on the right, positive charges on the left. This time we take our finger, a wire, some other conductor, and we attach it to the right side of this. We attach it over here. And so when that happens, the electrons, they want to repel as far away from the rod as they can, so they run down the wire. Now we play a dirty trick on them. We cut the wire. And when we cut the wire, what is going to happen here? I want to erase this. When we cut the wire, we slice it in half. Those electrons, they're trapped over here. There's all these negative electrons trapped over here, but they can't get back over to the ball. And so we have our rod, which never touched the ball. We have it chasing electrons over to a wire, the wire getting cut, and now we remove the rod altogether, and the protons are looking for something to pair up with. They're looking for their negative friends, and they're nowhere to be found because they're trapped over here on the wire, and there's no way to conduct them to the ball. And so the ball becomes positively charged. This is called charging by induction. The last way, and this just explains in words, if you want to read through that, those are in your notes, it explains in words what I just described. The last method of charging is called polarization. Polarization is a method by which we charge atoms temporarily. And so what is going to happen in polarization is that the electrons and protons are going to temporarily align. This happens a lot of times in insulated materials. The electrons are not going to conduct off, but I have here all these positive charges in this case. Could be negative charges, but in this case it's positive. And we have our insulating material, and the atoms have realigned themselves so that the negatives are on the left and the positives are on their right. The force that the charged object puts onto the insulator forces those electrons to move. And the electrons, when the charged object moves away, don't move back to their original state of randomness very quickly. And what that means is that for a period of time, not indefinitely, but for a period of time, the electrons are going to be aligned up so that one side of the insulator is negative and the other side is positive, and this creates an attraction with other materials. And as you can see in the picture on the bottom of the screen, the comb is able to pick up the paper because of its polarization. The nice part about polarization is that when the charged object touches other objects, it doesn't lose its electrons. It remains charged in its state without losing electrons when it touches another object. So take a look at that. If you have any questions, please let me know. The next time we get together, we will talk about Coulomb's law. Thank you.